So I want to leave you today with two pieces of information. So if you want to write down the outcome of this talk, you can do it now. Save yourself a lot of energy. The first piece of information I want to end with is the opportunity that we have can be found in understanding the business we're really in and what will disrupt us. And the second piece of information I want to end with is the opportunity can come from how we respond positively to change. So that's all I'm going to be talking about. Two things. Understanding the business we're really in and what will disrupt us, and the opportunity within how we respond positively to change. I would go as far as to say that after the 25 years career that I've had, working with maybe 50% of the Fortune 500 companies, those two things are actually the differentiator between success and failure. They are the thing that happens when a company pivots and explodes in a good way, and they're the thing that doesn't happen when a company tanks. Those two things. Of course you have being in the right place at the right time, having the right funding, having the right staff, having the right product, having the right market. But if those two things aren't in place, understanding the business you're in and what would disrupt you, and understanding the opportunity and responding positively to change, nothing works. It just doesn't actually work. It's the reason why Nokia went from being 70+% market share to much lower. And if they really were connecting people, then they would have invented Facebook. It's the reason why Kodak didn't invent Instagram. It's the reason why the tobacco companies pay between $170 and $200 million a year to this dude who created the electronic cigarette patent. The more you think about it, the more you'll realize that everything that went wrong was because the companies didn't understand the business they were in. The tobacco companies thought they made cigarettes. Naive. Nokia thought that people wanted phones with keys. That's what they're in the business of. No. Kodak thought they were in the business of making better cameras. No. Why didn't Hilton invent Airbnb? Has it ever struck you as weird? All of the companies in this room, either new or current or futuristic, will bear their success or failure based on whether you understand the business you're really in. Harley Davidson aren't in the business of motorcycles, they're in the business of freedom for middle-aged men like me. Wonder Bra aren't in the business of lingerie, they're in the business of self-confidence. Do you see? Fujifilm, who were the competitor of Kodak at the time, realized that they're in the business of how light manipulates any material. And that's why, as the camera market was tanking, they released what has now become the world's largest anti-wrinkle skincare cream brand called Astalift. Can you see a pattern? What's your electronic cigarette? What would disrupt you? Oh, no, John, we're really disruptive. That's brilliant. What would disrupt you, though? What would mean that whatever you're doing would no longer be valid in the world? Where are you on this chart? If you're the white line that's diagonal, and you know that today's the slowest pace of change you'll ever experience, we know that, right? You know that the exponential change that happens across all industries is almost totally invisible, right? So where are we on our white line? And what's really interesting that I found across the years is that what happens in terms of growth of companies and demise of companies is the first thing that you know that something is probably going to disrupt is that you have a low threat rating. When the change happens, you think that there's no threat. Afterwards, today, when we're in the nightclub later or whatever we do, if anyone says to you that something was irrelevant not relevant to me, that is the thing that's probably the most disruptive. Not the thing that you think's the most cool. It doesn't work that way. It's the thing that you miss, not the thing that you see. Because then what happens is that when the inflection point tips in and everything pivots, it's too late because the acceleration of that disruption hurts. It's the reason why Airbnb now sells 200 million rooms a year and is valued at such a rate of 20 billion that actually it's the third largest hotel chain in the world, although it doesn't actually have any real estate. It's an interesting thing because if we assume that when the winds of change are blowing, you either build a wall or you build a windmill, the question is, other than, wow, where did you get that nice Japanese proverb from? There's a search engine that does that. The question is, how do we convert the change into fuel? How can we convert what's happening into our business opportunity, rather than something that will disrupt us, something that can fuel us to grow? So I'm going to give you some examples, and then you can do the rest through the presentation. So I'm going to give you a start at like 4 or 5 starting points. This is the same technique. All we're going to do is make a windmill from change. So when we look, let's say, at Airbnb, we would think, well, that's irrelevant to us because we're not in the hotel industry or the travel and stay industry. Nothing to do with us. We're making an app. We're making a photo sharing service. We're making a cloud-based software as a service thing. So this means nothing to us. Unless, of course, we distill what's going on into what's really going on. And this is actually linking surplus to demand through accessibility. What surplus could you link to demand through making it more accessible? We could look at Kickstarter. You think, yeah, I know, we know the crowdfunding thing. In fact, we're launching our own crowdfunding service, or we're going to use a crowdfunding service. But other than that, it's not really relevant, especially not a card game that involves exploding kittens, despite the fact that I hate kittens. The reality is that what's really happening with this is that it's linking belief to production through investment, right? What belief do you reckon the community of people have that could be linked to something that could be produced through some form of emotional or financial investment? You are now converting change into fuel. Here's another one. I know what you're thinking. That's probably the best innovation I've ever seen in my life. I know, yeah, I'm feeling that too. Secondly, you're thinking, John, just tell us where we can buy one. And that's sick. If you're trying to buy the baby, I'm talking about the dusters. So and that's the dark web. So you're looking at this, right? You're looking at this and you're thinking, this is absolutely irrelevant. I was with him until Kickstarter. But this is actually linking behavior to purpose through design. I see opportunity everywhere. Even the Lego Strip Club, which is obviously genius. I know what you're thinking. What you're thinking is, firstly, where can I buy one, right? I'll tell you that at the bar later. Secondly, you're thinking she can't be that good a stripper because she can't bend her legs. I know. I'm with you. I'm with you, folks. But if you distill down what's really going on here is that it's linking demand to innovation through an adjustment of what already existed. Maybe I'm an optimist, but I see opportunity everywhere. Now it's your turn. So I'm going to go through a couple of things in the next 20 minutes, and you can see what you want to see, but distill down what's actually happening. Okay? So there's no more words on the slides from me. Now it's up to you. I have an idea of what some of them could mean and how we could convert some of the things that I show you into fuel. So let's try. What do you think? If all of this is happening in 60 seconds, what do you think that really means to a society full of noise? What opportunities do you think there are in de-production of what we do? Filter services rather than building services. What do you think it means when, in Japan, there's a hotel called Love Plus, which is also a game, which is also an app. It's now one of the third highest grossing hotels over there. And you bring your virtual girlfriend. This is a guy taking a picture of his friend and his virtual girlfriend. 8% of men in Japan would prefer to have a virtual girlfriend than a real girlfriend. And it turns out that 93% of women would prefer to have a virtual boyfriend. I can't substantiate that fact. What does it mean when virtual now is seen as real or better than real? What does it mean to the staff that we choose for the future in our companies? Especially if you look at haptic holographics that you can actually touch. Not one syllable I have uttered is based in the future. Everything I have said and will say is based in the present. The fact that you didn't know about it is not the problem of the innovation. Or as we say in consulting, picnic, which is problem in chair, not in computer. So this is an interesting thing. If we distill what's going on with this, you could think, yeah, okay, I get Spotify, I get Zipcar, and Spotify are just about to launch videos and comedy clips and fine, and Zipcar, even though I and several other people told the chief exec of Avis that Zipcar would disrupt their business, he still went ahead, ignored it, low threat rating, inflection point happened, he paid $500 million for Zipcar. What do you see when you see this picture moving forward? Maybe you could see something around the fact that people don't necessarily need to own anything. I remember showing my daughter my LPs. Anyone remember polyvinyl acetate records? The round black things? Anyone in the room? Come on, hands up. Okay, my daughter thinks that's where I store my downloads. It's a true story. So, and if you're watching at home, it's late, go to bed. Right, so this is an interesting thing to think about. The companies that are kicking it the most don't have anything. I'm amazed by what we did when we look at disruption in connectivity. People are talking about narrowband broadband technologies and WiMAX and all these kind of mast technologies and the cloud. I'm more interested in looking at the Loon project, which is the balloon-based internet, or the LED-based internet, which means that these lights are Wi-Fi transmitters. What does that mean to your broadband provider? What does this slide mean to your broadband provider? What does it mean to your business? Are you in the lighting industry? Should you buy shares in a lighting industry? What does it mean when you can have zoomable contact lenses? You blink twice, it zooms in once. Blink 3 times, zooms in again. Blink 4 times, zooms back out. What does it mean to the opticians industry when there's tiny little robots that can swim into your eye and fix your eyesight? What does it mean to the medical industry when digital smart medicine that you can buy now from proteusdigitalhealth.com, I have no affiliation, despite trying to bribe them, what does this mean when you can actually ingest something and your body tells you what's wrong with you? What happens to doctors? What happens to marketing when you sit down on a chair and your back tells you that it's comfortable? Not the slogan saying most comfortable chair in the world. What does this mean to advertisers? What does it mean to marketeers? What does it mean to PR? What does it mean to honesty? What does it mean to dishonesty? What does it mean to the medical profession, healthcare, retail? Everything exists. What does it mean when there's 2 billion people who have mobiles but no bank accounts? What does that mean to banking? What does it mean that underneath Bitcoin, there's actually something which is horrendously disruptive called blockchain? How many people in this room know about blockchain? I spoke to a bank last week, and no one put their hand up, despite the fact that NASDAQ are now trialing blockchain. Blockchain enables a seamless public ledger of transactions that requires no middleman whatsoever. The disruption isn't Bitcoin, it's blockchain. And here's what's interesting about the disruption. The initial disruption's actually the internet. But then because the internet enables blockchain technology enables new solution providers, and then these companies are the stocks you sell. Now, what I've done, because I haven't got very much time to speak, I've recorded a little free of charge video for you, and you can go to this slide. If you want to get your camera phone out, take a picture of this slide. You can also get this deck from that link, that top link. What I did is, earlier today, I recorded a little video of the 6 next industries that are absolutely categorically ripe for disruption. And I say that from personal experience because I was the chairman of the British music industry when we looked at trying to sue the internet because we thought that it might be a risk. So with bitter personal experience, and there are grey hairs under this, Bit of personal experience, I have now recorded a little video for you, and it also can connect with me through that. thoughtsexpansion.net/extra. For anyone in the room that actually wants to think about this and build stuff, I run something called the Unlock Sessions in beautiful locations around the world, where we drink and build and drink and drink and build. Anyway, think about it. Think about this. Is there anything that you've seen in the slides that you think might be a low threat? What did you see that I've just shown you that you've immediately discounted as irrelevant? Make a note of that in your head. The thing that you think is the least relevant, I promise you, will be the most relevant. That's the way it works. And what's interesting is, to round it back to the beginning again, the reason that it's so important to understand the business we're in is because the reason we find things irrelevant is because we're looking at it through a myopic lens. We look at our business like this, and something is over here, and we go, well, that's nothing to do with us. But if you actually expand your thinking and understand the business you're really in, every slide I've shown is not only relevant, it's either a massive disruption risk of explosion in a bad way, or a huge opportunistic challenge to be taken. And the question we need to ask ourselves, of course, every single second of the day is, where are we on this line? How responsive are we to change? How positively responsive are we to change? You know, when it comes to change, we don't like change unless it's change like buying new shoes or choosing a new holiday. We love that change, but then as soon as someone comes into the marketplace and undercuts our pricing, we don't like the change. As soon as a member of staff leaves to go somewhere else, we don't like that change. The reality is not only is today the slowest pace of change we'll ever experience, it increases at such a rate that doubles and doubles and doubles itself, which is exponential. Which is why, by 2025, the average size of a computer chip will be the size of a blood cell. And it will be 1 billion times more capable than it is today. We're making apps for phones that I guarantee you won't exist within 8 to 10 years. We're looking at wearable technology. Whereas the reality is almost all of the wearable technology has in-vein adaptability. Wetware. Wetware is where we should look. I don't know why I'm pointing at a red Mini, but you get the point. I'm just making an analogy of a different direction. Maybe, okay. So we're looking at hearables and wearables in the reality of an exponential change. To underline the point of the insurance talk earlier, I'm very, very, very interested in whether or not we're building for a future or whether we're building Me Too innovation of what's currently available. And this is why so many companies that we see around won't be the people that disrupt the market. It's an innovator's dilemma. What goes up stays up. You become successful, it's damn hard to innovate once you're successful. It's much easier to innovate when you're a 2-person, 5-person, 10-person company, but you can't scale the company unless you have X many more people. Huh? But you could if you looked at one of my charts around augmented reality. I want to speak to someone tonight who says, you know what? We're going to staff ourselves in a totally different way. We're going to have a 40-60 split of human-robot staff. We're investing into LED lighting due to the fact that that's the future of Wi-Fi. And all of our staff have digital smart medicine, so we always know if they're working too hard or if they're too hot in the room. Not one company I have met in the last 12 months has even thought of things in that way. I find it stunning that I come back from South Korea and come to Europe and meet a sea of innovations that aren't even what South Korea were doing 10 years ago. The App Store was around in 99. Everyone thinks that iTunes was the App Store. No. Entity Docomo had that much earlier. We're looking at smart glass technology Whereas I was wearing digital contact lenses for the entire 10 days I was over there. You don't even know whether I physically exist right now. Yes, because no robot would be that annoying. But it's interesting. The opportunity is in understanding the business we're really in and what would disrupt us. What's our e-cigarette? And the opportunity is in how we respond positively to the change. Do you see? That's it.